was in Nome on the Western Arctic, and there was no ice on the ocean in December. Unheard of. And an elder was in tears. She was telling me about how the ocean mammals are in trauma because they don't know where to have their babies. The ocean is changing so rapidly that they're in trauma, she said. And so that's what's putting their people in trauma. And she was sobbing.
We have food sources that are shifting. We have extreme weather events and infrastructure costs.
If you go down deep into the tundra, used to be 2 to 3 feet, you start feeling ice. And now it's further. It's not unusual to be in November where the river opens up again. It's happened already.
I watched
We have people that are traveling on ice that normally is frozen and they're falling through. We're losing lives because of climate change.
As we have more permafrost melting, we also have immediate threats regarding erosion. My grandmother's home was relocated about 7 years ago. That's just one of 40 to 50 villages that are facing severe erosion.
This summer, wildfires were raging across our state. Smoke was filling up this valley so terribly that people were having respiratory illnesses miles and miles away from where the fires were blazing.
I mean, there was thousands and thousands of acres that burned across our huge state. And I don't know where we could have gone to get away from the smoke.
Climate change here in Southeast, I think, is taking its toll. This summer was crazy because it was the warmest summer we've ever had.
We had record heat all across the state. We had record droughts. It hit 90 degrees in Anchorage for the first time ever. We had hundreds of thousands of salmon dying before they spawned all over the state. I think one of the most alarming stats I heard was that the rivers of South Central Alaska, the worst case modeling they did for 2069, we hit those this summer in 2019.
I was fishing in Bristol Bay with my dad throughout the state. We were seeing salmon that were dying before they had an opportunity to reproduce just from heat stroke. So that is new and that is unprecedented.
This year, we faced a serious drought in Southeast Alaska. So a lot of the salmon couldn't run up the streams.
I was born and raised in Alaska and I haven't seen anything like this before.
We're really at the edge of a cliff. We have to make some very drastic changes very, very quickly.
Climate change is impacting not only, the resources and the daily lives of everybody here, but it's impacting 10,000 years of history in who we are.
Everyone needs to come together and understand that our world is in turmoil and that climate change is happening, climate chaos is happening, and it's going to take all of us coming together to do this work.
We can't wait anymore. Our waters are warming, our fish are dying, our lands are burning.
We're in this place, we have no idea. I think it's already causing trauma on the land. It's starting to cause trauma on our kids. They have no idea what their life is going to be like. So, we work so hard to raise these issues, and yet we have so many people in this state who also continue to disbelieve that climate change is human caused.
Alaska Native people, we've really lived in harmony with the land and the culture and the water for generations and for many years.
But through the various waves of colonization, we have seen an exploitation of the natural resources that are adjacent to our people and our lands.
90% of our budget is based off oil revenue.
The exploitation of this non-renewable resource does not allow for long-term thinking or vision towards a different future. And so we are bearing the brunt of climate change impacts and experiencing a climate crisis right here in Alaska, while we have a majority of political leaders who are in denial about that situation.
As Alaska and the rest of the world looks to shift away from an extractive economy, we believe that Native people have a lot of the answers.
The solution is Indigenous knowledge, is uplifting the knowledge system of those peoples that have lived in healthy relationship with the land for time immemorial.
Whenever we made a decision, it wasn't just a decision for us. It was made as a decision as a whole.
We believe that it's possible to protect and preserve the sacred through movement building. That means hold one's identity up and culture up, traditional knowledge up, and own it in a way.
For us, it's living our traditional way of life. So what we're working on with Native Peoples Action is how do we go back to that balance?
Helping our neighbors, our elected leadership, our friends, vision an economy outside of what we've been told is economy.
It's not a new idea. You know, it's really going back to our Indigenous knowledge and our Indigenous roots and using that.
The economy that we envision creates space for creativity when it comes to expansion of our tourism industry.
Renewable energy production, growing local foods, sharing the local foods that are already harvested.
And from there, we can look at different actions that we can encourage people to do. On the federal level, we need to start talking about what's that legislation and policy changes, looking at carbon emissions, looking at moving to clean energy. What are those actions that our federal government can be taking? But more than that too, what can our state and local level be doing?
A lot of policy decisions are being made, but we feel that as the first peoples of these lands that we need to be co-equal decision makers.
You have to recognize that Alaska's a native place and you are on native land.
I think people are starting to see the importance of actually talking to Native people, of actually including them, but going beyond that, becoming allies.
And to do that, we really need Indigenous communities, environmental nonprofits, labor unions, and small business owners to be crafting what policies do we need to spur and support the new workforce. Getting more people elected who not only share our vision for the future at the local level, but also better reflect our diverse communities is one of the ways that we can make a difference.
And our hope is that as we cultivate and bring up and elect leaders who are more aligned to our traditional values, that we will make decisions that are not short-sighted and that we are driving the transition away from an extractive economy. I think that part of that vision for the future is our young people feeling very connected to this place, feeling like they have a role and a purpose.
Being a young person, particularly a young Native person in today's Alaska, is electric. It is a feeling like none other I've felt before, because not only do I feel empowered by my elders, by my community members, do I feel supported by the adults, the aunties and uncles in my life, but I also feel that I can play a crucial role in educating and supporting other youth. They are taking a stand against injustices in our state. They are particularly taking a stand against climate and are making sure that everyone who takes a moment to listen to them will hear their demands for justice and equality.
For too long, Alaskans have been told different stories about who we are and what we can be. You know, that we're an oil state, we're a mining state, we're a state in crisis. And it's time for us to take back that story. Salmon connects more Alaskans than oil does, for example.
I think there's a lot of different perspectives that different Alaskans bring to salmon. And then, of course, I think probably the most important one is as a food source for the first people in Alaska, the Indigenous people.
The land gives us berries and plants and all the mammals. The river gives us the fish, nika.
The first time I saw the abundance of salmon here and was just blown away at that resource.
So we have formed a collaborative partnership and began organizing and mobilizing with thousands of other Alaskans against threat after threat to our salmon habitat. Various mines, the Pebble Mine, which is now up yet another time for review.
On what planet are you going to build the world's largest open pit gold mine right at the headwaters of a fishery that produces 60 million salmon a year?
If there's one watershed that 50% of the world's sockeye salmon go to, why build a mine there?
We are in an unprecedented time where we are being forced to face the consequences of our actions as a globe.
Our ancestors saw this coming, and they've been telling us what we need to do to prepare.
How do we move forward and hold up the sacred? And that is the earth and our future and our children and their children's future.
It's through our culture, it's through our tribes, it's through working together.
And I think what gives me hope is seeing the movement that can be built. Indigenous people working with commercial fishing people, working with conservation people, working with tourism people.
We're growing. We're building a movement of people who are no longer going to be beholden to the scare tactics and the economic hostage that the corporations are holding over people's heads.
And the only way to accomplish this is by having organizations that work together and our communities that work together.
And that is young and old, that's urban and rural, that's indigenous and non-native individuals coming together.
This is the time. We're put on this place, in this body, at this time for a purpose, for a reason. And I think we're all feeling that. It's our time to be coming together and taking bold action and building together, building strong foundations.
It'll be real interesting to see how well we adapt and how well we remember to take care of the land that provides for us. If we're adaptable in a good way, I think we'll survive.